Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's Traders Mindchat show. Before we jump into things, I'd like to ask you a simple question. Have you ever jumped into a trade just because you felt like you were missing out? Also, if you did, let me know what happened when you decided to jump in. Was it a good experience? Did it work out well? What happened? I'll tell you my experience, and I'm going to share with you the whole experience that I had with FOMO. And well, it wasn't pretty, but well, let's see. We've got some people type into the chat already. Yeah, Caleb, I have many times. you know, and I want to point this out too because uh, FOMO is something that I don't think FOMO necessarily goes away. I think that how we act can go away, but I'm not so sure that the feeling of FOMO goes away. I want to share with you this chart here. This is weekly charts of the major indexes, and you might see that all of them are moving up and to the right, and they are getting pretty close to fresh highs. Some of them, like the S&P 500, the Dow, and the New York Stock Exchange, they all hit fresh highs. So if you're feeling like you're missing out, or maybe you're feeling like you're underinvested, you're probably not alone. So, in today's episode, I want to talk about how you can deal with FOMO. And the way that we're going to start is with this breakdown of a trade that I had in Alibaba. Now, this is a trade that I had quite a while ago. We're going back in time. And this trade was when Alibaba was an IPO. And I actually talk about this one in the Trading Mind Wheel a little bit. So I want to share with you this walkthrough and let's go through it. So this trade actually bought right when it was coming out of this base here, this IPO base. And you can see it, it's starting to break out and it's starting to look pretty good and it pops right out here. And there's going to be a point where I'm going to add to this. And you could even see some of the notes that I have along the way. Couldn't get rid of those to have those pop in as this thing progresses. But I think that it's still going to be a very good learning experience here. So I bought prices moving in my favor and things seem pretty good. And this is how sometimes the fear of missing out can be, oh, you know what? Maybe I saw Mike talk about this trade, or maybe you saw somebody else that you follow talk about a certain trade and it's running, and it's just like, oh man, I wish I was in that. You know what? They're still in it. Let me buy in right here. And if they say that it's not good anymore, then maybe I'll exit, or maybe I'll pretend that my stop loss is down here, right? And just try to take a smaller position size. Well, sometimes, that line of thinking might get you a win here or there. But what often happens is that we could get ourselves way out of position, right? So it's almost getting us into the land of system hopping, right? Let me know if you're familiar with that term, system hopping. Well, one of the things that system hopping means is that you have your trades, your setups, your processes, and then all of a sudden you start operating in a very different way. And that can work in the short term, but you end up with like a field. I'm looking out the window, a field of half dug holes where you started digging a hole and it, it was working, right? And then this other shiny thing happened over here. And now you start digging another hole. And well, this might have worked for a little bit. Now you just have two half dug holes. So what's it going to be? Well, what can eventually happen is you might get lured into a trade like this and say, "Oh wow, I'm glad that I hopped in over here because now all of a sudden I'm up 10%, 15%, well, whatever that happens to be at this point. It looks like it's closing in on the 30% mark, but you'll see what happens a little bit later as this trade progresses because again, this was one that I started out trading very well. It looks like from back here, I bought at the exact right moment when the price was coming out of the advanced area of the IPO base, then added to it at a very good time. And you might notice some of these other flags here, right? I started to believe more in my assumptions, my process, and the story, right? So now I'm building all this conviction in the trade. And, it seems as though it's justified. It seems as though I've turned a corner in my trading. At this point, I was starting to trade very well. I was getting some really good traction. And know that this was evidence in my mind, right? It wasn't something that I perhaps even consciously thought of as aha evidence, right? And well, let's mark that one down in the book. But it's more about those perhaps those thoughts, those beliefs. If we haven't done a beliefs exercise in a while where perhaps we start to think or there's some beliefs that we have that are working in our subconscious that can start to look for certain confirmations, and that's one of the ways that we start to get confirmation bias. Now over here, right, you can see that I have more conviction in what I'm doing in Baba and the story. So price is pulling back, but I'm not bothered by that. I've got a leader here. It's bouncing off of a key level. All those kinds of things look good, right? And while this is starting to play out and we get to the next kind of layout, let's see what some of you guys are putting in here. Greg. Hi, Michael. Thank you for the great show. You're welcome, Greg. Yeah, hopefully it gets even better from here. But you start to see how price is bouncing off the 21 EMA, and it's kind of doing a little bit of a dance over there. Caleb has a couple of comments in here. Let's see. The talking about trade from yesterday, and the FOMO is worse when a stock has done well for me. Yep. And I get back in hoping for a second bite of the apple. Well, you're going to see how that played out for me in Alibaba back in 2014. And I want to actually pause the the play of Alibaba here just for a moment and go back in time and see, well, what did the market look like back then, right? Because sometimes how the market's doing can play into our psychology. So this is the market from 2014, and it was right around here that Alibaba started working. In fact, well, why don't I zoom in a little bit more on this so you could see the price bars better? So it was in this area that Baba's starting to take off, right? So pretty strong market. You get into a little bit of choppiness over here, but overall, the market was grinding its way higher, right? So let's come back over here and continue the play in Alibaba. So it had pulled back to the 21 EMA. I've already levered into this position and it got a little bounce, and now it looks like it's consolidating. And you know what? Back then, I didn't have all of the different sell rules that I have now. I would try to hold and hold for the much bigger gain. In fact, back here, it had run over 20% in less than 3 weeks. So back then, I was still trying to follow O'Neill to the letter, right? For those of you that don't know who William O'Neill is, he wrote this fantastic book called How to Make Money in Stocks. And one of the rules that he had in there was that if a stock runs 20% in 3 weeks, you should hold it for 8 weeks. Now, there's several caveats around that rule, but the purpose of it was so that way you could hold on to a major leader. Right. So I saw this. I was starting to get more conviction in the story. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna make that happen with this one, right? There's a clue for you. Make something happen. We don't make anything happen, right? We don't make anything happen. What we do, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later on. The thing that we should be doing is perhaps, well, here's what you make. You make rules and you follow rules. It's up to the trade to decide whether or not it's going to follow the rules that you have. So at this point, price has made a few different lower lows. Prices testing the 50-day moving average. Oh, and look at that. It's bouncing right up off of there. And you could see, perhaps you could even feel the psychology of this building throughout the day, right? Because you see how prices evolving as the day goes. Where it was near the top of its range, then now all of a sudden it closed down, and now prices starting to break back up. It's Thursday. It's towards the end of the week. Oh, maybe it gets a little lift here, but you never really know, right? But as you might be able to see with this next piece of the story over here, that price got to the 50-day moving average. It held the 50-day like a true market leader. So what does that mean? Well, I took it as it's time to add to this again. And so, well, let's see how many ads I've had here, right? So I had my initial buy way back here. Then I added to it. And then it had this nice run. And then I'm telling myself that I believe in the story and I'm a great trader and all these wonderful things. And then price pulls back into the 50-day moving average. And I decide I'm going to add to this some more, right? Held the 50-day moving average. This is a true market leader, right? I put my stamp of approval on it. And what's it do? My beliefs are confirmed, right? I was about to say it confirmed my beliefs, but it doesn't know me, right? It's doing what it's going to do. But at the time, I had interpreted that this was telling me that I know what I'm doing and that it is a true market leader. We could interpret things any which way, right? Well, now price is doing a little dance around the 50-day moving average and it's consolidating over there. It's still the middle of the week, so maybe it's just having another retest. Nothing to worry about just yet. As you guys are going along with this, play the home game, right? Well, where are you looking to buy or sell, or think about the types of emotions that you would have as this is developing. Would you have feared missing out at any point so far? Let's see, where are we at right now? Well, now price is continuing to do a little dance around that 50-day moving average. One of the things that I see from a technical perspective is that price is trading below the other moving averages, that the shorter term moving averages are starting to roll over. Oh, look at that. And now we broke the 50-day moving average. We broke the most recent low, but now it's starting to get into the realm of, you know what? Maybe we hold this low down here. And dang, back to my first ad. I better sell, right? So I'm selling down here. And that's the day that I sold. And it's below the 50-day moving average. And I'm gone over there. It undercut all of this stuff. And because of not just buying over here, but also adding and not taking any profits out along the way, but just adding and adding some more and holding some more. I was out for about break even on this, right? And so the trade develops a little bit more. And right there, and this is what can happen a lot, right? You sell and it starts to creep right back up on you. And that's when the fear of missing out can really start to rear its ugly head, especially if you were just in it, especially if other trades were starting to work out too. So this is January of 2015. Let's come over to here and take a look at, well, where's January of 2015? At January 2015, you're in this chop fest right here. So you're getting some pretty big hefty up days right back up, and then you're getting slammed right back down, and that's another environment too where sometimes the fear of missing out can really mess with you, right? Because you're getting whipsawed. You buy back in, price starts to move in your favor, then it gets slammed right back down. If you've experienced that, where you get in, price gets slammed back down, you sell, and then price rallies right in your face. If that's happened to you, type into the chat. Give me a heck yeah if that's happened to you. It's happened to me more times than I can count. Let's keep this chart here going. Playing the home game here. Yeah, at this point, I'm starting to think about getting back in, or actually, no, we're over here. So price is undercutting where I had sold it. And let me know if this happens to you. You sell, price goes down lower, and you think to yourself, oh, thank goodness. I'm glad I sold. But part of that isn't just that, yeah, you know what? The price went lower. Part of it's also I'm glad I was right to have sold. Right? So that I don't know about you, but that's something that would run in my mind. Saying that trying to be right. And when we try to be right and we define ourselves as being right by what price does, that's a very slippery slope and you don't want to be there. What you want to define as right is whether or not you adhere to your rules. And over here at this point, it says, man, every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in. Price is rallying. So what do we do? Well, at that point, there's quite a bit of FOMO going on. I don't know about you, but I had quite a bit of FOMO going on over there. It didn't quite set up properly, so I ended up staying out. That's one of the things that I've been pretty good about throughout my trading, at least from the point when I discovered O'Neill and started, working with the IBD meetups. And by the way, for those of you that didn't hear, we're relaunching the New York City Investors Business Daily Meetup. So if you're in the New York City area, go to meetup.com, look for New York City Investors Business Daily Meetup, and subscribe to that. That's free, and we're looking to get together in person within the next few weeks. So make sure that you're on that list. But again, over here, right here we get a gap down. Glad I stayed out that last time. Post analysis. So a bunch of things are happening here, right? And hopefully you followed along and you can see some of the psychology that this stuff can play. Let me know. Let me know too. Did you have similar thoughts to what was displayed here? What do you think? Do you have similar thoughts when you're in trades? How do you handle it? See a bunch of comments coming in about some other trades. One of them being a trade in VST. Well, we'll talk about that. We'll walk through some trades that you guys have. So if you have some trades that you want to discuss, go ahead, type it into the chat now. We'll create a list and we'll go through them. But before we go through those trades, I want to give you 3 actions to take when FOMO hits. And the way that you know that FOMO is hitting, right? Like these thoughts, and you can start to feel your emotions. You can start to feel your emotions rising. One thing that you could do right away is to start to track your emotions. Start to think about how you feel as a trade is progressing. Now, you don't need to wait until real money is on the line and do this in real time. It, there's a simpler, easier, frankly, a far cheaper way to do it than to put real money on the line and start journaling that way. The way to do it is to do the home game. Do what we did right here. Go to your past trades. Go into TradingView, go into whatever charting service you have, go to where you bought over here. I could just click you click on replay, you go over to the bar that you bought, and then you just play it out just like we did and try to follow along. I would say go bar by bar and watch it evolve rather than just clicking the play button. So that way you could really get a sense of how you felt then, try to feel it, and then journal about that feeling. That's going to help you recognize that feeling as it comes up in the future. So when you do feel that feeling, and this is the second thing that you're going to do, you're going to recognize it, then the action that you're going to take. The action that you're going to take when you get that feeling, walk right out the door. Walk right out the door. Let me ask you this. How often do you make great decisions when you're afraid? Tell you from my perspective, the answer is almost none. Right? If I judge the decision based on outcome, then sure, there's a few that do work out, but as far as it being a good decision, the true answer is zero. We don't want to be making decisions out of fear, and if we judge a decision as good or bad based on the results, then that's almost like a drug. It's a drug because if we have a positive outcome by trading based off of FOMO, then that encourages us to do it again and do it again and do it again. And you know what eventually happens when you're trading based off of FOMO? You eventually make bad decisions. You start to trade in a way that's not congruent with something that's going to lead you to longer term success, something that's not in congruence with your trading plan, something that's not in congruence with your trading business plan. For those of you that are familiar with that, that's what you need to do. So there's 2 actions that you need to take. So then the third action is going to be to actually write your plan. Because if you don't have the plan written out, then that makes it real easy to say, oh, you know what? This trade here, it's running and it's running far and fast and it's running without me. So, you know what? Let me just buy it because, well, somebody else said that it's good. And that's how you get yourself into all kinds of trouble. So, let's dive into the Q&A. Go ahead, put your questions into the chat now. put in any trades that you'd like to cover now. There was already one from earlier about VST, and we'll hop on over to the charts and take a look at VST. Start here, and you guys let me know if there's other trades you want to talk about. Let me know if there's other questions that you have. But starting with VST, VST had a day, right? At one point, VST was down. Let's see how much VST was down. At one point, it was down almost 8%. So, what's the question about VST? I could see a couple of things that might be happening here, some psychology that might be happening. Well, let's say that you're in this and you have a halfway decent gain, and then you start to see price open up down here, and that gain is gone, and so you sell, and you let's say that you had a rule to sell that your stop loss is somewhere up here, and price triggers a stop loss, and you sell. You followed your rule. That's a good move to follow your rule. But then you see this happen, right? Price maybe pushed down a little bit lower than where you sold and you're relieved. And then price rallies and rallies and rallies, and it's back to where you sold it, or maybe it's even a little bit higher than where you sold it. And now the mental monkeys start to play with your emotions a little bit, right? Because if the market was closed and you're looking at this, maybe you're saying, wow, there's some pretty good aspects to this. Price touched the 21-day exponential moving average, that purple line there, that's the 21-day exponential moving average. Price got supported it. Price closed at the top of its range. I know from studying books like Monster Stocks from John Boyk that there's a lot of leading stocks, a lot of the monster stocks that have these big runs, move up on volume, pull back to the 21 EMA, and then push on higher. Now there's questions floating around, right? Yeah, yeah, the villagers in my head. The villagers are rioting. So then the question becomes, well, should I buy back in? What do I do? You know, to answer that question, it really is one of the reasons why I like to have a plan, right? It's why I have a trading business plan. And if you go to marrowwealth.com, you could get access to it. It just go up to learning books. It's there. What I would do is consult my plan. And the plan would tell me not, oh, you should re-enter VST, but it would tell me, is this a setup? Is this a setup? Maybe you're looking at this and thinking, oh, well, yeah, it is. Well, do you have something that's written out that says that here are the setups that I take? And if you do, does this match it? Does this match it? Well, I'll tell you right this, that's a nice reversal bar, but as far as the setups that I take, it doesn't match it. Not yet. It's 1 day short. What this is potentially setting up for me is a pullback buy. Now, I want to see 6 days of a pullback. Not 5, not 4, not 3. I want to see 6. They might be saying, well, five's pretty close. Yeah, 5 is pretty close. The problem with close is that if we start moving the line and moving the line and moving the line, well, where does that end? Sometimes we do need to have some hard lines in the sand. Every now and again, you can figure out when and where and how to ease on the rules where there's some flexibility. But for most of us, right? For most of you in this audience, unless if you have several years of experience, unless if you have a track record of success, not just success, I have a couple of winning trades or I'm on a winning streak, or maybe you're even up on the year. All that stuff's fantastic. You start to learn when and how you can relax on your rules after you've strung together several years of success. After you've done back testing, after you've journaled and you do your post analysis. And then in doing your post analysis, you could start to come up with new rules. And then you're not relaxing on a rule in real time, but you're evolving your rules in an intentional way. That's what you want to do. That's how you start to become a pro. That's how you turn your trading hobby into a trading business, a business that can help you grow your nest egg, a business that can provide you with supplemental income, a business that you might even be competing at, I don't know, the US investing championships. I've helped people in each one of those. And yeah, we go back and look at the channel. We recently had Arthur Smolensky on, who placed in the top 10 in the US Investing Championship that I helped coach. So it's a matter of figuring out what works for you, right? Because not everybody that trades necessarily wants to be competing in a championship, right? That takes a massive amount of work. I know a lot of people, myself included, you know what? Happy making a few bucks doing this trading thing. Happy to make money consistently doing this trading thing. The way that you're going to be able to make money consistently doing this trading thing is by having a written business plan that you're following, that you can evolve with. That's what the Trading Success Blueprint is about. That's why I wrote that book. That's why it's the most recent one. It's on marilwolf.com. I'll grab a link for you. You know what? Actually, well, why don't you just go over to the homepage and it's all right there. All right, so go to the homepage, marilwolf.com. I just put it in the chat. You go there, you go to learning, you go to books, and the Trading Success Blueprint is the one that I was just talking about. The Trading Mind Wheel is going to teach you all the skills that you need in order to trade successfully. So depending on where you're at in your journey, there's a book here for you. Let's see. Well, what other comments or questions do you have? We've got a full house today. We've got lots of people over on X. We have people on Facebook. We have people on Twitch, and we have people watching over on YouTube. Welcome, everybody, and thank you all for being here. Now is the time to get your questions in. We are a few minutes over on the show. Normally, this is a half an hour show. Here, you know what? Here's a question for you. This is an idea that I've been batting around in my head, and I'd love to get some real-time feedback from you. I'm thinking of doing a bi-weekly, not webinar, sort of a webinar, but a bi-weekly Google Meet This is one that I would want to do for free, but make it open to the public. Make it open where we could go onto a Google Meet, and unlike here streaming on YouTube or streaming on Twitch and Facebook and X, unlike those places, we'd be able to be face to face and have an actual conversation, and I'd be able to help a few people uh, in that Google Meet type setting. Is that something that you'd be interested in? If it is, go ahead, type into the chat, let me know. It's an idea that I started to kick around for a little bit, and I'd love your help in figuring out if that's something that you're interested in. So go ahead, let me know if you are. Even if you're watching this later on, I know a lot of people watch the recording of this show later on. If that's something that interests you, then reach out. Drop comments wherever you're watching. Even on Spotify, we take the recordings of this and we put them over on Spotify as well. Um, yeah, Caleb, uh, it would be a bit wider, right? Because there's a lot more people that it's open to, right? Because this one is free. A wider version of the weekly Insight Hour. We do a weekly Insight Hour for our members every Saturday. And we do that at 11 a.m. Eastern. And I'm thinking about doing that at different times potentially too. But well, we do that, and we have a handful of people show up every week. Alberto's one of them, and we're able to go really deep on a variety of trading related topics, stuff like we've been talking about here, individual trades, markets, um, strategy, sizing, you name it. We could go discuss it and go fairly deep. And we do that in these weekly group sessions with our group coaching members. I'd love to do something similar for all of you. So if that's something that you're interested in, let me know. Caleb says that if it happens during market hours, that would work better. Okay. All right. I like it. So yeah, if you guys want to do it during market hours, let me know. It's good to know who's out there, right? Like I see a bunch of people signing in right now. We've got 81 people across platforms, but I don't know who's watching, right? Like I see who's commenting. So I know Caleb's here. I know Alberto's here. I know that Greg is here, but you, I see Evan also. Hello, Evan. So I know who's here based on who's commenting, but I don't really know who's here, right? If that makes sense. So I want to get to know you guys. The more that I know you, the more I'm able to help. So drop comments. Let me know what I could do to help you guys. Evan says that having practical buy sell rules is the key. Too many, and you end up in a mess. Yeah, you know. Oh my God, you gave me a flashback, Evan. So when I was first starting out with CanSlim, right? Well, when I was first in the New York City IBD meetup, before I became a leader of that meetup, I read that red version of the How to Make Money in Stocks book. In fact, I've got that red cover. Is it over there? No, I've got the green cover on the wall. Basically the same thing. Anyhow, I read that book like it was a textbook, like it was back in grad school. And I went through it and I made a whole list of all different buy rules, a list of all the different sell rules. Within that list, I added things that I heard that sounded good from the other IBD meetup leaders, from Avi, from Richard, from Jim. Those guys had a lot of really great rules, so I wanted to follow all these things, and then I had a couple of rules of my own, and before you knew it, I had over 100 different buy rules, over 100 different sell rules, and when the bullets are flying in the market and you're trying to say, "Oh, great, prices falling," right? So, prices doing, this over here. What do I do? And I pull out the list and I try to read it. And as I'm trying to check off, all right, there's this one, this one, this one. All right, I should be selling. Then I flip it over. When should I be buying? Oh, right? And you probably know that feeling because that's when you have a bunch of rules conflicting with a bunch of other rules. And that's when you could run into some real trouble. And that's the kind of trouble that I ran into. So you might be asking to yourself, well, what do you do in that instance? Well, in that moment, you lose your mind, right? That's the reality of it. What you do after the fact is what matters, is because that's what's going to help you longer term, right? So in that moment, you have 100 different buy rules, 100 different sell rules. Yeah, you're going to fall. You're going to be frustrated. You're going to end up kicking yourself. But after that part is done and you've picked yourself up, you've dusted yourself off, what you do, you want to go back through all those rules. You want to figure out what it is that you're trying to do with your trading. What's your goal? What's your objective? Once you start to figure out those kinds of things, right? And it's not just, I want to make X amount of dollars. Part of it might be, well, here's how I'm able to look at the market. For most of us that are working a 9 to 5, or yes, Caleb, a 9 to 6, more like it. For those of us that are working all kinds of crazy hours, you might not have lots of time during the day to trade. And if you have a whole big laundry list of all these rules to follow, it might be impossible for you to do it. It's not that the rules are bad, it's that they don't align with your lifestyle. So what do? You've got to simplify. You've got to simplify. Now, does that mean that you need to do all that on your own? No, of course not. What I did back then was I started to look at other people that were in a similar boat that I was and started to see, well, what did they do? It was around that time that I discovered this guy named Nicholas Darvis. If you don't know who Nicholas Darvis is, Nicholas Darvis was a dancer. I believe he traded back in the 40s or 50s, and he was reading ticker tape at night on weekends. He would plot his charts by hand, and then he would call up his broker and say, I want to buy X number of shares at this price. And if price gets to that level, buy it. If it doesn't get to that level, don't do anything. And I don't want to hear from you at all during the day. And in fact, if you do call me during the day, I'm closing my account. And that's how Darvis operated. He didn't want to be bothered at all during the day. And he went on to write a book, how he made $2 million in the stock market. And back in the 40s, 50s, a lot more than it is today. So that gave me a lot of hope. It gave me a lot of inspiration and gave me a lot of structure for how I would want to start to structure my trading. Went on, followed his work in conjunction with what I was learning from the New York City IBD meetups and from O'Neill. And inside of a year, I took what I had learned, I showed it to the other people at the meetup, and they invited me to be an organizer of the group. They invited me to be a leader of the group. It I was kind of dumbfounded at the time, right? Because here I am about a year in. Well, what could I possibly teach these people that have been trading successfully for so long, right? And so what I found was ways to do this stuff a little bit more efficiently, in a way that could work for having a 9 to 5, 9 to 6, 9 to 7 sometimes, being able to trade effectively. And so that's why I'm here. That's what set me on this path to help and coach and teach. It's not easy, but it's not impossible. We need to be efficient, and we need to trade in a way that aligns with our beliefs, with our goals, and with our ability to execute. Because if you have any of those missing, you start to run into all sorts of problems. It's another thing that I go deep into in both of those books right there. We've got the Mara Mindshift Guide. That's a trading beliefs workbook, and we also have the Trading Mind Wheel, which uh, that one's a fantastic book. That's the one that Mark Minervini wrote the forward to, and I was having dinner with Mark when I went to South Carolina in the summer, and he told me that, look, Mike, I've only written two forwards, right? I get asked to write a lot of forwards. I've only written two. One of them is your book, The Trading Mind Wheel. So he believes in it. I believe in it, obviously, and so hopefully you give it a read. And I just saw a deal on Amazon that it's even better than the audiobook. Audiobook had it on sale for 60% off now through the 9th, November 9th, I think. I saw on Amazon that if you sign up for Audible, you could get it for $1. So go check that out if you're into Audible. All right. Looks like there's some trouble on Twitch. Um, Sorry about that. If you can still hear me on Twitch, let me know. Did anybody else have the sound cut off? Anybody else having problems with the sound? Greg says that it was a great book. Thank you, Greg. Greg says, Michael, I have known you for over 2 years and I have never heard your backstory. Super interesting. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, absolutely. I go into a lot of my backstory too in the Trading Mind Wheel. There's a whole story in there about my dad. I told this story, actually went a little bit deeper in the webinar that we did. Uh, was it a week ago? I don't know. My days are getting a little screwy, but uh, there's more to that story than even what I share in the book. Perhaps we'll save that for another time, right? Gotta keep something to keep coming back. But we're way over time now, so we'll wrap things up. I want to say thank you all so much for being here today. It's been an absolute pleasure. If you would like to check out the Trading Mind Wheel or the Trading Success Blueprint or the Mara Mind, any of the books, go to marawealth.com. The link is in the chat. It's also on the screen right underneath my name, marawealth.com. There's a blog there. There's lots of free education. There's also a variety of ways to work with me. If you want to work with me in one of our research programs or in the group coaching, there's details on all that over at marawealth.com. So thank you all so much for being here. Again, it's always a pleasure, and I'll see you next week. Take care. Much love. Have a great weekend. And as always, God bless. Hey, thanks so much for sticking around to the end. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button down below and become a part of the Marrow Wealth community. And make sure that you check out some of the other videos on the channel. They're exactly what you need to see. And leave a comment down below. I read all of them. Leave a comment.